Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the first video on this channel. Got 10th place at the 460 player Santa Clara Regional this past weekend playing Danger Dark World. So I guess we'll get right into the profile. Played 3 copies of Snow, pretty self-explanatory, searches just about any card in the deck. So yeah, definitely have to play 3 of that one. We'll go into 3 Rainbow. I've seen some lists play less of this, but I definitely think 3 is the right number. Searches a 5 or higher Dark World when it's discarded, and then if it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, it also summons a 4 or lower to either field, and then it also returns a 7 or lower Dark World to special summon itself from the graveyard, which comes up a lot for infinitely recycling your cards. So yeah, 3 of those, and then the 5 or higher Dark Worlds that it's searching are Grapha and Silva, 2 of each. I think 2 is definitely the right number for both of these. You can get away with 1 Silva, but in case people like DD Crow or Bellew, you want to have the second one. And then Grapha, bricks, if you play 3 and 1 really just isn't enough with the fusion spell. 3 honestly would be nice going second, but again, it's just a little too bricky. So yeah, 2 of each. And then the 1 Cerulli, this is for the hand loop combo. You discard this and give this to your opponent, and then it's an opponent's card effect that makes you discard. So it can trigger all the secondary effects of the previous monsters we've talked about. So you hand loop them for 2 if you discard Silva. You can look at a card in their hands, and if it's a monster, you summon it with Grapha. You get the extra level 4 monster with Rainbow, and then Snow can summon an extra monster from your opponent's grave. You usually want to be discarding Silva with this though, and then you bounce it back with some cards in the extra deck we'll talk about later to do that twice, and then you hand loop them for 4 with Cerulli and Silva. And then we'll talk about how you get the 5th card later. And then I played 3 Genta and 2 Field Spell. I did miss the 3rd a couple times, and there was one time, I think it actually lost me the match. I would have been able to keep playing because I drew all 3 Gentas throughout the turn, and I didn't have the 3rd Field Spell to search. But if you draw this card and you're not able to get a Fiend in the graveyard, it's a really dead card in your hand. So, and I never bricked that way, so it was a trade-off. I think it was worth it. Only lost 1 match, so drawing all 3 Genta happens. But yeah, I definitely think this is the right ratio, and I'd keep playing it like this. And then I played 1 Fusion Spell and 1 Archives. Archives is for sure one of, always searchable. You can discard to boost attack. That's still a discard for effect though, so it triggers all your Dark Worlds. And then if a Fiend is discarded by a Dark World or an opponent's card effect, you can discard 1 for effect and then draw 2. So really nice 2 ways to trigger all your Dark World effects. And then Fusion, you can Fusion summon by either discarding or banishing from grave. 2 of this almost sounds nice going second, but I think it would be a little too bricky. It's always searchable with Snow, so I think 1 and 1 of this is good. And then next I played 3 Dark Corridor. I've seen lists play 1, 2, and 3 of this card. I definitely think 3 is correct though. It's good at any point in your combo to start off, or in the middle of your combo. Sometimes you can even search Cerulli and get a Cerulli Silva or Cerulli Rainbow play to play around Droll right at the start. I think, yeah, you always want to see this card, even though it's a hard once per turn. You'll still have uses for dead copies of it later in your combo as well. And then the new cards, 3 Gen, 1 Ken, and I played the Rhoda to get the Gen as well. Just resolving this card is so insane. So if you don't know how it works, you normal summon Gen to your field. Its effect summons Ken to your opponent's field in defense position, and then Ken makes you draw 2 and discard 1. So that triggers all your Dark World effects by opponent's card effects. It's like having a second Cerulli that's also Pot of Greed at the same time. I think the 4th copy is worth it, even though it does lose to Droll sometimes. And then we also play Thrust. So if you start off with Cerulli, then you can Thrust for Rhoda and get to this engine to get you even further into your deck. And at that point, you're guaranteed to hand loop 4. And this is also how we get the 5th card out of the opponent's hand, because Ken's effect summons Gen, and Gen makes your opponent discard 1 card. So throughout your combo, you just leave the Ken on your opponent's field, and you get to either Change of Heart or Triple Tactics, take the Ken back, give them Gen, they discard a card, and it's also pretty much an extender because now you have the Ken on your field as well. So yeah, that's that engine. Would I'll play I think all 5 of these cards are 100% mandatory. And then on to the dangers. I played 3 Nessie. Pretty much the best one. It's the only one that's come back to 3. Searches any danger when it's discarded. Unfortunately, level 7 and Aqua doesn't really come up, but it's still definitely worth playing 3. And then the one whose type does come up and level, Chupacabra, level 4 for rank 4 plays. It's a fiend, so you can discard it off gates. This is definitely the best one for this deck. You could consider playing 3, but just because it's a hard once per turn, I think 2 of is good. And then 1 Mothman. I have played 2 and 3 of this, but I was kind of worried about going against Tier with this card, because if your opponent discards a Tier name with this, or a Ishizu card and mills 5 or fusion summons, that's just, you might just lose right there. So I think 1 of this was fine for me, though if you don't see a lot of Tier where you're going, 2 or even 3 of this would be good. And then 1 Jackalope and 1 Tsuchinoko. They're both at 1 for a reason. These are definitely 2 of the best dangers. And then 1 Bigfoot, 1 Thunderbird. 2 Bigfoot is usually better, because popping face-up cards usually comes up more than face-down cards. But it came up several times for me that these needed to be different names for link plays, so I decided to go with 1-on-1. You could play 2 Bigfoot though. And then 1 Salamander Catalyzer. This card is pretty much a danger, but you get to choose what happens. You reveal itself and a fiend, usually one of your Dark World cards. Discard it and special summon the other. And he's also a level 4 for rank 4 plays. And then his second effect, I often forgot about when I started playing this deck, but it actually won me a grind game against Tyr in a game 3. If a monster is destroyed by battle involving your fiend monster, you can add this card back from your graveyard to your hand. I kept using this every turn and linking it off and just adding it back in a simplified game state, and it ended up getting me there. Definitely would not cut this. I wouldn't play more than 1 though, since it's a hard once per turn. And then the Spice, 1 Unchained Soul of Sharvara. I've seen decks play bigger Unchained engines, this and the Trap, or this and Shyama, the other level 6. But I think just this is enough to make the engine worth playing. So Lord of Yama is just 2 Fiend monsters, which you can very easily do in this deck, and that gets you to this card, which is another extender that can pop like one of your dead spell cards, or Grapha, and then you just summon it back. And this can get you into Soul of Rage going first, and then Soul of Anguish going second, which can link with your opponent's monster up into an access code. Just 1 brick in the deck helps a lot going first and second, and it's a really good fallback play as well. If you get hand trapped 2 or 3 times and you're not able to get to the hand loop combo, you can still get to this and end on a couple interruptions through Soul of Rage linking into Little Knight. So yeah. Definitely think the Unchained engine is worth playing, and we'll get to it more in the extra deck. And then for draw spells, I played Card Destruction and 1 Allure of Darkness. I know 1 of this seems very strange, but I often found when I was resolving multiple copies of this card, I was just banishing too many engine cards, and it would mess up my combo a little bit. So I thought 1 was fine, and I actually usually side this out, though it's debatable whether you should side it out because it can get you into your side cards. And then Card Destruction is just the best card ever for this deck. Obviously, if you're activating this against the Mirror Match or Tier or something like that, it's going to be rough, but just resolving this card for you is so good. You pretty much have to do it. You can side this out in matchups you know it's bad. At the regional, I actually got really lucky with this against a Mathmech player. I'll mention my matchups at the end, but against the Mathmech player, I activated this and I discarded Double Droll Imperm out of his hand, and he only drew a Veiler, so definitely won me that game. Felt a little bad about that one, but we take those, right? And then we played Thrust, Talents, and Change of Heart, like I talked about. You could just play these 2, but I added this in. It's a decent going second card, and you're pretty much the only deck who can play it going first. You take Ken, you can take Steruli and return it with a Grapha or a Rainbow. So this is pretty much just an extender going first, and then obviously it's insane going second. Like against Unchained, you can take their Wave King Caesar and force out the escape, or if they don't have escape set, you just stop all of their interruptions against you. You can do the same thing with Talons, but I found that having 2 copies is kind of nice, because you could use this to draw 2 and then you can use this to take, so you don't have to waste that effect on Talents. Or you can use Talents to look at your opponent's hand as well. That's another way to get the 5th card out of their hand. And then Thrust can get you to either of these cards, or it can get you to engines in your deck as well. It can get you to card destruction, it can get you to Rhoda, and it can get you to Dark Corridor. So if your opponent's going second, you can get to pretty much whatever you want. And then if you activate Cerulea, you can get to Gen, or if you activate Ken on your opponent's field, you can get to any of your Dark World cards as well. And that is the main deck. On to the extra deck. Played 1 Graph Fusion. I see almost everyone play 2 of this. You really just don't need it. You have multiple ways to get this back into the grave, and if you have it on the field and you want to summon it again, you can just bounce it back with the Grapha that you discarded to summon it, and then activate your fusion spell and summon it again. So 1 was always fine for me. I didn't miss the second a single time in the tournament. You can bring this back with Muckraker and Unchained Soul Lord of Yama as well, so yeah. And then for Xyz, I played Dugaras and Coach King Giant Trainer. I think both of these are pretty standard. Dugaras, the main effect you use is to skip your next draw phase to draw 2 and discard 1, and that discards for effect, so it triggers all of your Dark World cards. And you have a lot of level 4s in the deck, so pretty easy to make. And then Coach King seems pretty difficult to make with 3 level 8s, but with Graph on Rainbow, it's pretty easy to get to. And this card, up to thrice per turn, you can detach 1 material, draw a card, and reveal it. And then if it's a monster, you burn your opponent for 800. So it's a time card, and it's draw 3. A lot of times this is better to go into than Saryuja. You just can't use your battle phase the turn you use this, but going first, that really doesn't matter. And then the 2 to bounce back your Cerulea, and sometimes Ken, Akashic Magician, and Security Dragon. You always summon your Cerulea to one of your even zones, so Akashic Magician can bounce it back. Security Dragon can just return any monster on the field to the hand. These both can also be pretty decent going second as well. The main thing to keep in mind with Akashic is that it has to be made with 2 of the same type. 2 Fiends is pretty easy, but you can sometimes do 2 Warriors with either Coach King and Gen, or if you activate Change of Heart on Ken, you can use Gen and Ken to make this as well. And then the Nightmares, I played Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn, and I recently cut Griffin for the Unchained package that we'll be talking about next. But yeah, I do like to keep Cerberus in. I see some people take this out. You can even use this going first to pop the Gen or Ken on your opponent's field, or you can even loop Cerulea a 3rd time if you need to, like if you discarded a Rainbow first or something. You can pop the Cerulea, summon out Muckraker, and then bring back the Cerulea, return it to your hand, and then discard it 1 more time. So you can loop the Cerulea a 3rd time with that play. And then Phoenix, obviously good for going against back row decks. And then Nightmare Unicorn, just good for outing things that can't be destroyed. And then all of these are good when you're Fiend locked by Muckraker. Sometimes you have to go into Muckraker early if your hand isn't very good. So you can still summon all these under the Fiend lock of Muckraker. And then I guess we'll just talk about Muckraker next. So this is usually your fallback play if you get interrupted or if your hand's not very good. You can target a Fiend in your grave, discard any card, and summon it back, and that's discarding for effects, so that'll trigger your Dark World monsters. So linking into this is pretty much always 2 more monsters if you discard like a Silva or something. I just have to remember that this can't be used as link material the turn it's summoned. And then for the Unchained package, we got Yama and Rage, and I actually side Anguish. We'll get to that in the side deck. But yeah, this is just 2 Fiend monsters, so pretty easy to make this. It's a good backup option to go Muckraker, then Yama, and you can pop the Muckraker with the Shivara and then link into this as an easy backup play. And then the second effect of this also comes up. It can reborn any Fiend, so it can reborn the Grapha Fusion, it can reborn a Rainbow. It's pretty much guaranteed just an extra 3,000 damage while it's in the graveyard. And then Soul of Rage usually links into SP Little Knight or Nightmare Unicorn, but oftentimes you don't even need it because your opponent is playing with 1 card. And then on to SP Little Knight. This card's crazy. Pretty much every deck is playing it right now. Banishes a card on summon and then can target 2 cards to banish it in response to an opponent's effect. So these two together make 3 interruptions just by itself. So pretty good fallback play if you're not able to hand loop. And then Saryuja. Playing 2 of this would be nice, but there's just not enough space. But yeah, this is pretty much just to cycle through your deck and get through more cards with the drop 4 effect. The special summon effect is also nice. But yeah, definitely would play 2 if I could. There were a couple times, I think just once at this regional, but I've done it plenty of times before, where I actually make Unicorn and shuffle back the Saryuja and then summon it again just to get further into the deck, and I just can't get to the cards I need. And then Access Code Talker, pretty much the best go second link for in the game, and we have even easier access to it with Unchained Soul of Anguish. We can link with our opponent's monsters. You could cut this because your monsters are also big anyway, and you have like Grapha and the Nightmares to get rid of stuff, but I actually OTK'd through Droll once because I had this card, so I think I'm keeping it in for sure. And then lastly, I played Underworld Goddess, just for outing towers and things like that. It's hard to out with the rest of your cards. And then for the side deck, I actually sided 3 extra deck cards, starting off with Gaga Cowboy. We all know what this is for, the attack effect. Obviously, no, it's a time card. You do have Coach King as well, but I like to side this just to guarantee that you win in time. It actually never came up. The only time I went into time the entire regional was when I was in the battle phase, attacking for game already. So you don't really need it. I might switch to just the Coach King, because there's honestly more extra deck cards that we thought about siding. So yeah, could cut it, but I think it was worth playing. And then for the other ones, we side in Dark and Unchained Soul of Anguish going second. Both these are really good. There's a lot of good Dark monsters you can steal, and if you're able to steal a Link 2, that's an instant access code. Or if you're able to steal an Unchained monster, that's this, and then you can take one of their monsters and make an access code and then pop one. Just really good going second cards. I usually swap them out for Coach King and Soul of Rage when I'm going second. And then if they still make you go first for whatever reason, I doubt they would, you can just end on SP Little Knight plus your fusion spell, and that's usually enough. But yeah, so that's what I would side out for those going second. And then on to the rest of the side deck, we have 3 Droll and Lockbird. This is to beat the other FTK decks like your own. Because we play 0 hand traps in the main deck, so you need something like this just to make sure you live and can play on the next turn, because as long as you can start playing, you're pretty much good. This is also like the #1 card that beats this deck. You get drolled, you pretty much can't do anything. That's actually part of the reason I played the Unchained package as well, because if you can get into 3 monsters, you can get into the Yama, into the Soul of Rage, so you at least have something, but even that's still hard to get into. I do side a card going first to help with this, but there's not really a good out you can play that I found. And then 2 Lava Golem that I usually side in with the Droll. This is more to break the board though. One cool thing about Lava Golem with this deck is that you can bounce it back with Akashic Magician and Security Dragon and do it again. So you can contribute over it like 4 of your opponent's monsters very easily, as long as you can summon it to one of the even zones and then bounce it back. Or with Security Dragon, sometimes you can go Security Dragon and a Nightmare below it. Like pop their set, draw, bounce back your Lava Golem, do it again. Yeah, so that's kind of how you break boards with this deck. And then typically against the combo decks, I would side these out for the Ganon Can engine, because Lava Golem takes your normal summon. And then I played 3 Xyz Encore. Obviously good against Pearly, but cameraman Lucas actually told me I should put this in against Dweller, because that card absolutely destroys our deck, and this guaranteed outs Dweller. There's no other card that guaranteed outs Dweller. Like, you can play like Nib and stuff, but sometimes they can put up a Baron or something like that, depending on the deck you're playing, but they can't respond to this, kind of like Super Poly. So yeah, just guaranteed outs Dweller is actually the main reason we're playing it. And then one Harpy's Feather Duster. This is the only back row card. Labyrinth is honestly a free matchup for this deck, and Eldritch too. Like, you just body most back row decks because you just summon a lot of big monsters. We actually side one of their best floodgates, which we'll get to in a second. And yeah, you have Grapha and stuff, and the Fusion Monster. Like, the back row decks that are currently in the game really just aren't that hard. So just one Harpies you can get with Thrust. And then lastly, Triple Skill Drain. Yeah, this is our out to Droll and things, and D-Shifter and things like that. You just hope you draw this, set it, and hope you live another turn, and then you try to play the next turn. You can play totally fine under this with Dangers, and your Grapha and your Rainbow still work fine. And with Gates, it's a 3,300 or a 3,000 beater, which most decks have a lot of trouble against with a skill drain. So yeah, that's our out to most side cards that beat us. And then before the profile's over, I want to go over some other stuff I considered playing before the tournament and after the tournament. I did have gold in at one point. If you discard this off Shirley, you can destroy 2 cards your opponent controls. Theoretically, pretty good against back row decks, but just keeping Silva in and not playing this is fine. Like I said, you usually just destroy those decks. And then the other Link 4s I've seen people play, Apollosa I did like, but typically, even like Nib, you can just keep playing through just fine. You don't really need it. Nightmare Griffin was the previous end board before I put in the Unchained stuff, and I actually did kind of want to play Unchained Abomination. I wanted to play both of these, but just really didn't have space. But yeah, I've seen some lists play all 3 of these. Options you could consider. Especially if you don't have SP Little Knight or something, you could put in one of these 2. Yeah. And then lastly, a card I considered playing after the tournament that I thought might have been good was Typhon. There's a lot of times you can like almost break a board and they have like 2 interruptions left, in which case you could just summon this on top of your Grapha, attack over something, and then detach the material from this to out the last card. You don't get to play after that, but you could get it down to a simplified game state, try to play out the next turn. And yeah, I think I might put it in next time, or side it, take out the Cowboy and side this instead. We'll see, but I thought this might be a good option after the fact and after seeing more content on this card. But yeah, that's the profile. And then my matchups, they were Makonko, Tier 2 Unchained, Vanadium, PK Horus, Infernoble, Mathmech, and Pearly. I guess some of the highlights there. My losses were Unchained and Vanadium. Vanadium, it was just kind of a rough hand. Game 3, I lost to just an Imperm on Dugaris. I think I maybe could have played it slightly better, but I don't know if I was winning that game because he had 4 really good engine cards in his hand. And then my second loss was Game 3 against Unchained. He had Anti-Spell and Droll and Lockbird, and I had 3 or 4 spells in my hand, so wasn't really much I could do there. Some of the ones that were a bit easier, Makonko, he was playing the pure going second build, and he made me go first after I got Snake Eyes. That was round 1, so that was pretty easy. And then Infernoble actually was able to 2-0 as well. Won the die roll, went first. I activated Tactics to look at his hand. One of my buddies had actually played him, so I knew what he was playing, but he didn't think I did, so he scooped on the Tactics. I had the full hand loop combo anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I actually broke the board game 2. He only ended on 1 Charles, not 2, but I was actually able to bait out the Angelic Ring with a lure, and then activate another Dark Corridor because he negated the first with Charles, and then just break the whole board. I looped his hand for 4, and I only left him with my Cerulli, and I passed the turn. That felt pretty good. And then yeah, I talked about the Mathmech card destruction thing as well. I think those are all the main highlights. So yeah, thank you guys for watching our first video. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next one.